I mean, the beauty of the BGA is we are here to cheerlead, advocate, make it as easy as we can and provide resources, but we're not the ones implementing the change, right? It's folks on the ground. It's the stage managers on tour. It's the lighting designer thinking carefully about their design. It's the director saying this is a priority in this production, right? So I'm really proud of the change that's happened in the community and how we have been able to play a role and hopefully, again, give a nudge or give a resource or connect folks. I mean, my favorite accomplishments are for sure our network of green captains. We have well over 1,000 spread across the country. And so thrilled at that number.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Tech in the Arts, the podcast series of the Arts Management and Technology Laboratory at Carnegie Mellon University. The goal of our podcast series is to exchange ideas, bring awareness, and stay on top of the trends. My name is Hannah Brainerd. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the lead researcher with AmpedLab. In this series, we're exploring the intersection of climate and the arts through interviews with leaders across disciplines. We hope you'll learn more about actions you or your organization can take toward a more sustainable future. I'm also joined by Ashley Offman, a theater artist and AmpedLab social media and marketing manager.
Hi, my name is Ashley Offman. My pronouns are she, her, and I am AmpedLab's social media and marketing manager. As Hannah just stated, outside of this realm, I am also a practicing theater artist, and so I am very happy to be here today.
Today, Ashley and I are talking with Molly Braverman. Molly is the director of the Broadway Green Alliance, an organization working on Broadway and across the country to encourage positive climate action in the theater community. Molly came to the Alliance with extensive industry experience, working as a stage manager on Broadway, touring Broadway and regionally, as well as serving as the managing director for Theater Horizon in Norristown, Pennsylvania. Awesome. And actually, Ashley, you want to start us off here?
So as we were discussing before, so I have a background in musical theater performance. That's kind of how I got to where I am now. And I know that you have a background as a stage manager and you've worked on Broadway, on tours and regional theater. So from your work as a stage manager, how did you start to get engaged in theater sustainability? What was that pathway for you?
Yeah, so I definitely at the start of my career did not consider myself an environmentalist. Not that I was anti-environment, but it wasn't something that I was actively thinking about on a day-to-day basis. I've always always wanted to be in the theater, and I've always believed strongly that the theater has a critical role to play beyond its four walls, right? Art and artists have always been at the forefront of change. And so I was always working to make sure that what we were doing on stage resonated far beyond the proscenium. So perfectly teed me up for what I was doing, but I hadn't fully connected environmental work with social justice work and work toward, bettering the lives of humans, because so much of my education around the environment was rightfully so about animals, right? About the ozone layer, about so many critical things, but the link wasn't super clear back in the day. We weren't talking as much about how the environmental crisis is a human health crisis, is a human rights crisis. Everything is deeply interconnected. And so I began to uncover that more as I moved through the world, but especially when I was on tour stage managing with Wicked. That's when I was first introduced to the Broadway Green Alliance, right? When it was getting started, and signed up quickly as a green captain, which is one of our volunteer positions. So I was actually a green captain on the road for those 3 years and began to see how much of an impact we could have and we were having, both in the positive and negative, right? As the show moves around the country, you get exposed to so many different types of environments and folks and systems. And I started to see that we had an impact everywhere we went, and it was not the same, right? The climate crisis does not impact us all equally. And then I also began to realize my own agency, right? As a stage manager in that space, what could I influence? Where could I start to make an impact? A lot of what we hear is, I'm just a blank. I'm just a stage manager. I'm just an actor. I'm just a producer. Everyone kind of feels like we can point our agency somewhere else, right? It's their job. What can I do? and starting to sort of realize that there's a lot to do, and all of us as artists with our different, very unique skill sets can really impact that change.
Awesome. While we're on that, Hannah, if it's okay, while we're on that subject of green captains, I want to touch on that as well, because we also have a question about that. So what does the role of a green captain look like? I know it's a volunteer process, and that, from the website, I read that a lot of people will volunteer at the first rehearsal. But something I really noticed was that the Broadway Green Alliance got 100% participation in the 2011 season, which I think shows leaps and bounds of like how theater is very much at the forefront of the social change that we want to see. So what does the role of a green captain look like throughout the production of a show?
Yeah, so Green Cabinet is definitely sort of our signature program. It's the one I love the most because it brings folks from all across the theater in different roles in different places together with this shared mission and shared values. That said, no two Green Captains look the same, right? It is a volunteer position, it is a choose your own adventure position. And so, as you said, somebody raises their hand often at first rehearsal, sometimes as a replacement along the way in a long run, or if they're in a regional theater, sometimes it's one of the staff members who's there full time. So all different types of folks can raise their hand and say, pick me, I want to be the sustainability steward for this show or for this company or this theater program. And usually we love when there's more than one, right? We all do better when we have a team. And then we connect with them and we send them a toolkit of customized resources, right? Depending on what type of theater you're doing and where it is. Our needs are all a little different budgets, different sizes, different, missions sometimes. So we send a customized toolkit to those folks, and then we're there to support them. But really, it's up to each green captain to drive the change that they want to see, because there is no one size fits all. And so it depends a lot on what the show is, where the show is, and also the green captain themselves, right? One of the things with climate action is there's always more to do, right? We can always keep striving to be greener. And in fact, that's one of the BGA's core principles, is that it's impossible to be 100% green, right? We all have a carbon footprint. We're here talking to each other. We're breathing. We have a carbon footprint. We cannot escape it. But what we can do is strive to be greener each day, right? Do something more, then again next week, and then next year, and keep building upon that progress. And so we look to our green captains to implement a similar strategy, because everyone has different passions, right? You can't do it all at once. So if you are passionate about composting, go for it. Work on composting in your theater. If it's about circular economy, maybe you're a scenic designer, go into that world, right? Pick something that speaks to your heart and that works for your particular circumstance. And that is really how we try to adapt our Green Captain program to suit lots of different folks doing lots of different things.
I love that. And I loved kind of hearing some of your story and how that brought you into living a greener life. I think it's so funny that that started on Wicked, of all things, being green.
Yes, it is appropriate.
Going off of that idea that there are so many aspects specifically in theater, but why do you think that sort of theater plays such a pivotal role in the sustainability movement, and kind of where do you see it leading in the future?
Yeah, I think theater in particular, arts in general, we are storytellers, we are communicators, we inspire hope, right? Which is critical for this. And we are able to build community. And we know this is not something anyone can fight alone. This is, climate change does not know borders, it doesn't care. And so I think that's really where theater artists can excel, is taking incredible work done by scientists and advocates and activists, not that we aren't as well, and finding new ways to reach new people and new audiences and inspire action. I think a challenge with climate change is that sometimes when we read about it, it is nothing but depressing, right? And it is, because it's really dire, because it's here, it's now. The headlines are terrifying. Trust me, there are days I wake up and I read the climate news and I go, oh God, I'm getting back into bed. Why even fight the fight today, right? It's really hard. And so that's where I think as artists, we have the ability to say it's hard, but we wouldn't be having these conversations if the solutions weren't here and change wasn't possible, right? Then in that case, sure, get back into bed, pollute all you want, shrug. But that's not the case. The solutions are actively here, and it's about finding political will, social will, capital and the resources to drive change, which is hard. And that's where I think we can really come in and help change the narrative and inspire more folks to stand up and see the possibilities.
Absolutely. And I feel like I'm wrestling with that same battle. Like, how do you share how really deeply impactful all of these problems are without being like, oh, well, there's nothing you can do about it?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, humans are pretty maladapted for this type of crisis, right? We even saw in the pandemic, until it was right in front of our faces, it was hard to accept and hard to change. We just are, we have not, I believe, I'm stealing this from a wonderful scientist, but they were explaining how humans have not evolved as quickly as the crises around us have. And so that's just an inherent change. And that's why I think psychology and arts and communication can really come in and play a critical role.
Absolutely. And I think the pandemic is such an interesting example too, because we got to see sort of firsthand how quickly we could react when it came down to it. And I think for people both sort of involved in the arts, which were greatly impacted by the pandemic, but then also sort of in the climate movement, it's like, okay, we can pivot this. I mean, not a positive opportunity all around, but sort of there was a little bit of silver lining there. It also kind of helped raise the question of what does it look like to be sustainable as an arts organization, thinking long term, how do you come back from events like this? And sort of as a society, what does sustainability really mean to us? So I'm curious, sort of as Broadway Green Alliance approaches this question of sustainability, how would you define it? Sort of beyond climate, what does that look like?
Yeah, no, that's a great question because I think it's really important that we can't work in just one lane in sort of a single vacuum. So we look at sustainability holistically, and that you have to have environmental sustainability, you have to have financial sustainability, and you have to have social sustainability. And so, an example I love is if you decide to change your green room over from single-use plastics and plates and cups to reusable, right? Great solution, one that you can implement very, very low cost using audience donations and really engaging the community. Great opportunity. But you know what? It's not sustainable if all of a sudden the PA is washing the dishes every night with no extra pay, right? Doesn't count, doesn't check the box. Yes, it was better for the earth, but it was not better for the humans who were doing that work, right? It was not socially sustainable, it was not financially sustainable. And so, you can expand that out into much bigger conversation. But I think the essence is the same, that you're right. If we're just caring about one lane or we're only caring about financial sustainability, that doesn't check the box, right? We have to think about this holistically because all of these issues are so deeply interconnected.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you talking sort of about the Green Captain experience because it's just one of sort of the many opportunities that you've created, some of the resources that you've produced. And I'm wondering if you could tell us more about some of your big success stories with Broadway Green Alliance, some things that you're really proud of accomplishing.
I mean, the beauty of the BGA is we are here to cheerlead, advocate, make it as easy as we can and provide resources, but we're not the ones implementing the change, right? It's folks on the ground. It's the stage managers on tour. It's the lighting designer thinking carefully about their design. It's the director saying this is a priority in this production, right? So I'm really proud of the change that's happened in the community and how we have been able to play a role and hopefully, again, give a nudge or give a resource or connect folks. I mean, my favorite accomplishments are for sure our network of Green Captains. We have well over 1,000 spread across the country. I'm so thrilled at that number. I'm thrilled at the number of folks we're able to reach using some of our programs. Like we have a signature concert in Times Square now for Earth Day that I believe we just did the numbers and last year's reached over 40,000 people, in different ways through in person, online, right? And these are ways, opportunities to reach folks who might not be coming for climate content, right? We work in theater on Broadway. We have amazing talent who can lift you up and inspire you. And then we can also share about what's going on. And so that to me is a huge accomplishment. One of the early things that happened that the BGA played a role in was the changing of all the light bulbs in Broadway marquees. So over 800 tons of carbon each year. by replacing, because I mean, the lights are bright on Broadway, right? So that is a huge accomplishment. And that was done almost 10 years ago now. So the cumulative impact of just that carbon savings is pretty dramatic.
Wow. And Ashley, I need you to chime in because I'm not going to get the story right. You have a huge collection of programs and
I do. I have kind of, this is my satellite collection. I'm staring at it right now. I have like, that's probably at least 30 like paper programs, but something that I've noticed that it's also another thing that's been implemented sort of slowly is the QR codes. I want your take on this of like having sort of some of the theaters here in Pittsburgh, for example, will give you a partial program, and it'll just have like the bio of the actors, for example, but then they'll have the QR code for, further information. And then I saw Moulin Rouge on tour, and they had, please scan this QR code for the most updated, like the casting for this evening's performance. And then you can go back. I believe Six is has adopted that as well for their tour. I would just love to hear more about that from your perspective, because yes, I am a playbill collector, and I do have my Sweeney Todd paper insert in there, and I'm like, oh, they could have probably had a QR code or something in there.
No, we're really excited about the transition from the paper stuffers, as they're called, inserts, to QR codes, to digital space, especially on tour. When I was on tour as a stage manager, one of my jobs was to be in charge of our stuffers. And it is a huge task with a ton of paper and a ton of waste, right? Not only do we have that, but then we travel it. So now it has a footprint on a truck, right? This incredibly heavy box of stuffers. So that, I think, is huge progress that Actors Equity helped drive in negotiations, because again, we have a lot of unions in the theater doing great work, but we have to make sure that we are working alongside them every step of the way. And so the QR codes and production contracts on tour is a major win. I'm so thrilled that you're seeing it, and that you're seeing it successfully, right? And it doesn't take away from the program. Programs are a different question. It's a big question. It's one we get asked a lot because it's one of the most visible forms of waste in a theater, right? It's not necessarily the biggest one, but it is definitely visible. And visibility is part of our key, right? Because it's great if we make a change for the Six tour, for the Moulin Rouge tour, right? But if then that tour tells the audiences what that change is and why, we have now communicated to thousands of people about the why and the climate crisis, and perhaps inspiring them to go bring that action back to their own home or community or mega industry they run. Who knows who's in the audience, right? So I think that's really exciting. And one way we're starting to do that on Broadway is with souvenir cups, another incredibly visible form of sometimes waste in the theater. Just like with playbills, some people have a collection. I definitely, I share that. And some people go, this was great, and now it's trash. Same with souvenir cups, right? Some people get that souvenir cup for their wine to enjoy Moulin Rouge and want to keep that forever and use it. And some people go, oh God, not another cup into my home, please, and throw it out. So what we worked with a great company, Cup Zero, and with the concessionaire Sweet Hospitality to start piloting the option to put your cup back into circularity, right? So this isn't recycling, it's actually taking the cup, having it commercially washed and returned, as long as it's still in pristine condition, and reused. So keep the cup if you want it, wonderful. And if you don't, put it back in this box and it will get reused. So I think that's actually a very recent win, speaking of visible waste at a theater, especially for audiences.
I don't know if I've been to a theater yet where they're doing that, but
we're piloting it. It's new, but I think we're going to see more and more of it.
Very exciting, because I certainly need that. Like the playbills, I have so many of them, and I've been told you cannot have more than one theater-related collection. You have a problem.
I mean, I'm not sure I agree with that statement, but I
don't either. I wasn't saying that I have a problem or that you have a problem. What I'm saying is that I've been told that I don't agree with it.
Okay, great. Playbills are easier to keep than many cups. So
kind of while we're talking about waste, actually, I saw a couple different sort of campaigns that you do, in a sense, e-waste on Times Square a couple times a year, and other sort of like recycling generation kind of activities. Could you talk a little bit about some of those programs? Oh, binder swapping too, maybe?
Yeah, I love our binder project. Our binder project is a binder library that's located in our office right in Times Square. Again, these are programs that are a little bit more New York centric just by nature of our physical location, but they can be adapted anywhere. And we've seen some folks, some universities start a binder library. So all of these ideas are free to take and implement in any community. But what we have is a library, readings happen, workshops, shows open and close, and everyone needs binders. And then you're done with the binder. And so we collect them and then we loan them out. And I really enjoy inside, we have sort of an old school library card. So people can write in what show they used it on and then see who used it before them, which I think is really special. And again, adds to the community feel of what we do in the theater. So we have that. We do host 4 collection drives in the middle of Times Square every year, as you mentioned, to e-waste and to textile. Our goal again is to make it as easy and accessible as possible to make the choice that you want to make, especially in our theater community. Look, we are all battling time and finances and crazy rehearsal schedules and all, family and life. So our goal is where we can to make it easy to make the better choice. And so that's what we do with those drives. Recycling e-waste is hard to do for free. It's an expensive thing. So we offset that expense for our community so they can come and recycle. Textiles, we also partner with a great company so that we can accept things from wardrobe departments. And one of our favorites is we accept towels and sheets, especially towels from wardrobe departments and then sheets from anyone's home. And we run a Towels for Toto program where we upcycle those items into NYC animal shelters. So everywhere we can, we look for circularity over downcycling. So another program we have is a vase collection program in New York City where wonderful opening night, everyone is showered with flowers and then is left with vases they no longer want. Bring them to us and we take them right back to Times Square florists to get refilled and go to the next opening night. So we have a few more programs like that, but again, all our focus as much as possible on local circularity and reuse.
I wanted to ask about the Metro card collection too, because I love seeing that turn into a new piece of art that kind of takes on another life. Is that a local, like New York artist?
Yeah, we work with a wonderful artist, Nina Bosch, who turns them into gorgeous pieces of art. I'm a little sad because Metro cards are phasing out for the most part in New York, as everyone uses their smartphone. But as long as they are still in existence, we will keep collecting them and getting them to Nina because she creates such beautiful work. And again, another wonderful thing we can do to, find beauty in a challenge.
I wanted to kind of go back to, talking about like the binder collection, really creating and supporting the community. So I also read that, Broadway Green Alliance offers grants to support theater greening across the country with funding up to $750 for a specific project. I remember reading about Dark Fest at the Tank. Could you talk about some of your other maybe favorite projects to come out of that?
Sure. So for now, it is actually an NYC specific grant program. So give us time, I would love it to be national. But right now it is for off Broadway, off Broadway, and itinerant companies located within the NYC area. And I love it. We actually are in the process right now of soliciting grant applications, and reading them is always inspiring because all the projects, again, are so different. I was thinking about do I have a favorite? I don't think I do because they're all so different. Some recent really cool ones, one I was really inspired by was a group came up with a climate action design position so that there was somebody paid in the design team and on staff to focus on sustainability, which I think is great because it elevates it, right? And again, we're all overworked. We all don't have enough time. It's really easy to take the shortcut. And I get it. I do it. And as I said, I have a toddler at home and another baby on the way. There are days where I order something online that I wish I could go find secondhand, right? So there is no perfect. Again, it's giving all of ourselves grace where we have to. And I think that's true, especially in smaller theater companies. Again, having worked in plenty, time and money are always a challenge. So this is one way to try to alleviate that. And I thought the climate action design was incredible. We just had another theater company that used the money to invest in a special device for properly disposing of aerosol cans and the chemicals inside that so that they're not just released into the air once they're no longer used. That's genius. We've had some really cool lighting retrofits in order to upgrade lighting systems to LED, especially backstage and in house lights, places we're not always thinking about. Oh my goodness, I could go on. And then some theater companies even just using the funds to encourage secondhand costume purchasing. Again, it can take more time to do that. And I'm sure if you talked with Sandra Goldmark, she shared about this because I'm so inspired by her every time she talks about it, which is how we use our budget to direct our values towards the environment and reshifting budget priorities. So I think that's genius.
Yes, we we did talk about that. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is brilliant.
Yeah. No, so many decisions come down to finances and how we use those finances to direct where we want our values and our priorities to be is a really incredible way of framing this.
Yeah, I really value how you also highlight that it's not just about the financial or the environmental sustainability, but the social of it as well.
Absolutely.
I think that's definitely a big piece of just the industry as a whole and the arts as a whole, is that I hope that we continue in the trend that social sustainability is part of the conversation and is part of how we continue to move forward. We just have one more question for you. So we were thinking about the idea of thinking big, but starting small. So what's the first step that you'd recommend to an arts organization in general, a theater, regardless of size, that's hoping to take its first steps in their sustainability journey?
The easiest one. That's what I'd recommend. Whatever feels in your brain so easy and almost too small to not make it worthwhile, that's the one you start with, because you're gonna get it done, right? I think sometimes we get stuck in dreaming is trying to bite all of it at once, right? And I get that impulse. I do it all the time, right? Okay, well, if we do this small change, but we also have to do this, and we don't yet have the money for solar panels on the roof, so now we're stuck, right? And now we've done nothing. I like to remove the word just from all of our sentences around kind of everything, but especially climate action, right? Well, we just switch to reusable water bottles from plastic for our guest artists. Not a just, that's incredible. Do that. Start there. I don't know what the one action is, because again, everyone we have such a broad menu of actions, but that's why I'd really encourage folks to start with the lowest hanging fruit, that easy one, the free one, the one that saves you money. Printing double-sided saves you money, better for the environment, right? Start there. Whatever it is, get a win and then keep building on that win.
And I'm glad that's our last question, because I don't know how we can follow it. That's fantastic.
You guys had really thoughtful questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really fun to talk with you. And I wish that we had like 3 hours so we could learn even more the work that the Broadway Green Alliance is doing, and you in particular, and how you're advocating for their work is just so inspiring. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you guys. I'm really thrilled you're doing this series. And if there's anything else you need, you want to join our Green Captain program, if you want to do any of this, we are here, and let's keep the conversation going.
Thank you for listening to the Climate series on Tech and the Arts. Be on the lookout for new episodes coming to you very soon. If you found this episode informative, educational, or inspirational, be sure to send it to another arts, climate, or tech aficionado in your life. You can let us know what you think of the podcast by visiting our website, ampedlab.org. That's amt-lab.org, or you can email us at ampedlabcmu@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram at Tech in the Arts, or Facebook and LinkedIn at Arts Management and Technology Lab. We'll see you next time.